Hello, everyone, and welcome to part 2 of the collaboration series BSD webinar, Disruptive Technology for Construction. Before we begin today's webinar, I'd like to go over just a few housekeeping notes. Towards the bottom of your GoToWebinar control panel, you'll see an option for questions. If at any time during the webinar you have a question for one of our webinar hosts, please feel free to type that question into that window, and we will save some time at the end of the webinar to address any and all questions you might have. Following the webinar, you'll receive an email from us containing the recording of this webinar, as well as a link for an extended free trial of BSD SpecLink. I'd like to introduce you to today's webinar hosts. Join us today, we have Holly Jordan. Holly is the Director of Specifications at Perkins and Will. Holly has produced construction specifications for a variety of building types, including K-12 schools, as well as higher education, science and technology, multifamily, hospitality, medical, commercial office and retail, landscaping, oil and gas, veterinary, and civil engineering projects in the United States, South America, Africa, and Saudi Arabia. As a certified construction specifier, her experience includes sustainable building, diverse project delivery methods, specification format conversion, and mechanical, electrical, and plumbing specifications. Also joining us from Perkins and Will, we have Shelby Fisher. Shelby is a specifications writer at Perkins and Will. She has assisted in organizing, writing, editing, and coordinating construction specifications for a wide range of project types, including healthcare, K-12 and higher education, science and technology, and multifamily. She has contributed to the Texas practice throughout all project phases, including construction and contract administration. Both Holly and Shelby specialize in developing owners' master specifications and design guidelines. Also joining us today is Laura. Laura is the Vice President of Sales for the Owner Channel here at BSD SpecLink. Prior to BSD, Laura has managed the consulting arm of RS Means for 17 years. There she was focused on lifecycle studies, facilities budget, and legal disputes between owners and general contractors. Now, I'd like to transition over to our webinar host, Laura. Laura?
Also, I'd like to start to go over what is the current industry practice and a little bit of why it is so costly and why we took a look at trying to create something that was different and disruptive to help the industry. Also then, how does that SpecLink work and how does it enable collaboration? In conjunction with both Holly and Shelby, we have orchestrated 2 demos that we'd like to go through about the different processes that we've identified that SpecLink can really help. One of those is the owner collaborating with outside consultants to help them update their standards and guide specs. And then the second one is how can they collaborate using the design professionals on active projects, typically with capital projects. And then we'll end it with some Q&A, and we may take questions in between if Sarah has something that she wants to interrupt us with. So let me start with a recap of the first webinar. We basically had Janet Dirks of our firm, who's the Director of Content, come on. She also teaches the City T course. And we went through all the different definitions and the differences between design guidelines, standards, guide specifications, and then technical project specifications. There seemed to be some confusion sometimes in the marketplace. So I've come up with a really simple chocolate cake analogy to help drive this thought. We have an owner, rather than a building, we're going to use a chocolate cake with lava in the middle, and then we're going to say that it's gluten-free. That's the design intent that the owner is trying to convey, that's what they're looking for. And it's up to the design professionals and their teams to now create the specifications and the renderings that would go with that. In this case, we also have a little bit of feedback from facilities where we have a nut allergy. So with that, we can have the owner create guide specifications, and mentioned earlier in the last webinar, these can be intended to strictly follow word for word. Like in this case, the example of gluten-free and a nut-free flour is what we need to be looking for. And this way they can be performance requirements. Either way, we need to look at these, because if we don't provide them, then the design professionals have the latitude, and quite frankly, at this point, they have no direction otherwise. They can be giving us a white chocolate cake or a red velvet cake with lava in the middle that doesn't match what the owner has intended. So the design professional's job is to design to the intent of the owner. Then we end up with two sources of truth, and this is where specifications and guide specifications start to, where the rubber meets the road is what I call it. So with the guide specifications, we actually have the opportunity for the design professionals to now translate those into more technical specifications. And in this case, we have them more performance driven. If you notice, the owner has provided section 10.0010 for no almond flour as a very specific needs to be followed instruction to the design professional. As we move over to the design professional and what they can develop, we can now take that further. And if we want it to be performance driven, then we can have rice flour, gluten-free flour, or coconut flour. If we want to take it further, maybe we're on a private project where we can have branded specifications, we can take that further and actually provide branded specifications that both can be used in project specifications. At the end of the day, legally, both of these have to match. The specifications have to work with the model and represent what's there, because from there, we pass it on to the general contractor, who now has to build to that intent. And however well we do this from start to finish will determine whether or not we actually get what we asked for as an owner at the end of it all, or we end up with something that we didn't want. So let me go ahead and explain a little bit of, you heard a little bit about my background. Working in the construction continuum, there's been so much that we get with change orders and disputes that happen at the end of a project. And over time, we have managed to be able to come up with tools. People have been developing tools at every step of the way to help us better manage and become more efficient. All of these tools and within each of these different silos across the spectrum are all database driven, with the exception of one thing. The Word documents that are still floating around in shared drives for the specifications, there's no way we're ever going to get good data transfer from pre-design through to facilities if we're not putting the design guidelines and the guide specifications into some sort of a database format to where we can match and make certain that what we're asking for as an owner is what we get at the end. So with all these different tools and functions, we now need to look for a holistic solution that will actually bridge the gaps between pre-design and facilities, which we believe we've done with SpecLink, and we'll get into how that works here in just a few minutes. So the one big issue that we found, and of course coming from RS means I have to be able to use, I'm sorry, let me back up, get to some cost. So I'm going to toggle back and forth here a little bit. We created a little calculator to show you just exactly how that works with these processes. And this is just for two things of managing and going back and forth and reviewing documents for every project. So we just put a quick calculator together, which we can make this available for everyone. How many people do we have, full-time employees, working on the design team, whether it be a project manager that's working with an architect on capital projects, or if it's an internal spec team that's trying to enforce their standards, or even on the architecture side? How many projects a year are you working on? How many spec review periods are there? There's typically at least 4 at the 30, 60, 90, and 100% mark. Then we also have how much time do we spend reviewing each of these sections, retrieving documents from shared drives off of other people's workstations, trying to bring them into place. Then how many approximately sections do we have that we look at for an average project? I've made this really small, so it's just a half an hour. We only look at it 4 times, maybe 100 sections, and use the nominal rate from RS Means for $150, which includes a salary and overhead and profit. If we start to move this around a little bit, where we start to do more than one project, you'll start to see that the numbers will start to escalate and grow, where this is giving you the estimated cost of the project, our estimated savings of what we can get out of SpecLink by making the process more efficient. If we spend an hour on it, if we have more sections to review, these numbers exponentially grow. What ends up happening is one of two things. We either end up having everybody reviewing it and it's actually legitimately costing and adding time to a project, or we're actually doing it to where nobody's looking at it and we end up with change orders and problems at the end of a project. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Holly to kind of explain in a little bit more detail from her perspective how these two processes work.
Thank you, Laura. So we have two processes, two scenarios. First, the owner develops their own guide specs and requires architectural firms and other outside consultants to use them. The architectural firm or other consultant downloads owner's masters to the project file for project-specific editing, and then the spec writers edit the project specs. And our second scenario is an architectural firm develops their own guide specifications. Team members go to the masters, copy to their individual project files, and begin editing. This is just the basic process that you can use throughout every submittal. And on the screen here, she shows 30, 60, 90, and 100. Okay, Laura.
So how does it work? I'd like to tell you that we designed SpecLink Cloud for our current conditions where everybody's quarantined at home, and I'll make note of the fact that both Shelby and Holly are actually sitting in two different locations. They're sitting in Dallas and Houston. I'm sitting in Florida, and our moderator, Sarah, is actually sitting in Atlanta. And all of you, God knows where you guys are, but you're just sitting at your homes as well, and we're all able to do this. So I'd like to say we did it for the current conditions, but we did not. We did it because we actually developed this to try and bridge the gaps for the owners and to give them more control where they need it and to give flexibility and control to their design professionals when the project starts to get a little pregnant with a lot of players in place. So the way SpecLink is designed, and I'm showing you this so that you have an idea of what the machinations are in the background before we go into the actual software. It's basically a SQL database with a central repository of content that sits in the background. There is a place for master, whether you're an architectural firm that keeps up with your masters, or if you are an owner that keeps up with your master guide specs and design standards, it all sits in one central location to where it can be managed in one place. From there, we have a couple of things that BSD does. We actually update all of our own content. We update national reference standards, and we also update the manufacturers. We also import your content. So if you want to just have all of yours in there, you can do that and take advantage of the features within the software to help better manage and update your own master specs. From there, we push updates out to your content. So there's never any reason why you shouldn't have it up to date, and you'll just get a hyperlink that tells you some changes have happened, and you can immediately update your standards. Or if you have an active project, they're done separately, but you have control over both. What ends up ultimately happening is we don't have to go through a whole check-in, check-out process. We can create a project as an overlay from the actual master database. So the updates are constantly pushed through. It is the control of whoever is the project manager or the architect of record that can actually manage those updates on their side of the project. From there, project managers can now assign and share this overlay with outside consultants to come in and now begin to edit. And we can also share it with contractors to where we can comment. They don't have a license to be able to comment. And we can also share it with internal subject matter experts and facilities teams that we may want to get feedback from so that we can retain our corporate knowledge and start to put all the goodies inside of our masters. Before we get in, I want to set up the scenarios that we have designed to show you inside of SpecLink, and then we'll turn it over here in just a few minutes to the software. We're going to start off, and the process is the same for both, but just to outline what it looks like. So I will represent the owner, Laura. It's going to be my SpecLink instance that we start this from. This is where I have my central repository where I want to memorialize all the changes so that when I get that project manual later, I can actually take it and keep it, and I'll know all the comments that were made and everything, every decision that was made in between. And then again, a place where I can log all my corporate knowledge. From there, I'm going to invite Holly, who is going to represent the architect in this case. We've commissioned Holly to come in and update our design guidelines and standards. So from there, she has a full license. We'll be able to edit. She's the only one that will have permission to edit at this point. From there, I have Shelby on the line. Shelby's actually going to be driving for Holly on this case, and then she actually is going to represent, though, here, the subject matter expert has permission to go into Division 7 and Division 8 to be able to view and comment when we talk about updating the design standards, and then she will represent a project manager and when we go to an active project. The process is the same. You're just inviting people in and sharing a project or a master, depending on what you want to do. Give me just one moment and I will get us over to the software. toggle over. So when you get into SpecLink, you'll see I've got a place for projects and masters. We've set these up ahead of time so that for the sake of time being on the webinar, but just to show you, it's very simple to create a master. I just go to Master, Office Master. If I had imported content, I could go straight to that. In this case, I'm just going to go straight to Master Content where I would have the BSD content, and then I can fill in all the information. So I've already teed that up. So let me go ahead and show you. Once I'm in here, let me move this thing a little bit. I can share the project, or share, I'm sorry, in this case, we're sharing the master. You'll notice that I've got it hidden. We've got public and private, and then I've got two little people that tells me I've actually shared this master. So when I go to it, all I have to do is enter their email address, a message. I can give them access to all sections, or I can give them access to certain sections. I can also give them access to either view, comment, or edit. And just to reiterate and to get back to it, Holly is going to be the one who is our editor because she is responsible and commissioned for actually updating our master standards. And then she'll also play the role of an architect when it comes to providing her access to a project for a capital project. The permissions are the same. In this case, I've given Shelby access only to Division 7 and Division 8 in the master because she is our subject matter expert represented in this example. For the time being, because I need her to drive, she's going to have edit rights for now so she can show you what goes on in the software, but I can make it to where she can only view and comment, which we did that earlier when we set this up. So give me just a minute, and when I'm going to toggle this over and give control over to Shelby and let Holly talk. While I do that, I want you to also be aware when you look at Shelby's screen, you'll see that she only has access to the projects that I sent over to her. So you'll notice where you can see everything on mine, which is the owners, you're now going to see what we see on Shelby's screen on her end. She'll only see what we've given her. And Shelby, let me know when you're ready on your end.
So I'm going to start talking about the process of how we start when we start developing a master. And the process is similar for developing an owner's master and developing a master for our architectural or engineering firms. So the first thing that we do is we evaluate information and documents that our owner has currently for any historical background, any specs that they have, any design guidelines that they have, preferences, etc. The next step is we decide whether to use the owner's preferred documents or the BSD documents, the SpecLink documents. Historically, we use the SpecLink documents for architectural sections and supplement them with owner's preferred content. On the other hand, our engineers are a little more attached to their documents, and for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing documents, we start the other way around. We import owner's documents and supplement them and add to them with the BSD content. So we start in SpecLink Cloud with our track changes on, and we start to make edits. Once our edits are completed by myself, the owners, subject owners, and the subject matter experts will review and comment using the comment tool. We have meetings to review and discuss the comments and then coordinate from there. So now we're going to open up this section. This is the hollow metal doors and frames. Now, if you look up at the top where it has the specification name and number, you notice that you can tell where the document came from. This is an original BSD SpecLink document. You can use your own documents. For example, at Perkins and Will, any Perkins and Will documents that we import, where it says BSD up here at the top, it says PW. And so that then we know where the document came from. We also have documents in our files that are documents that are manufacturer specs. So again, in the place up there where it says BSD for the hollow metal doors, if we have a manufacturer that has developed their own specification, it will have the manufacturer's name there. So let's look at this. Let's look at this spec section. So we've gone through here, and I've gone through and I've started editing, and I've started activating sections. Anything that's green is activated. So we're going to go down through here, and you're going to see right here on line number 115, I've made an edit. So I have the track changes on, so our owners, representatives, or our project teams can see exactly what I've edited. Now, when we go down to 1.06, line 121, you can see that there's a comment here. So Shelby has made the comment that instead of 3 years documented experience, she wants me to change it to 5 years minimum. And so I can go in and I can reply to her comment. So this makes everything digital. We don't have to email back and forth. We don't have to have a lot of comments back and forth on this. Let me see here. Okay. So then when I comment back to her, and once we've decided that this is finished, we can hit resolve, and this comment will be resolved and can go away. Okay. Thank you. Now, when we go down here to our manufacturers, like I said before, we meet with our owners and we find out any historical background or preferences. Our comment here, after I've made my markups, is they've asked us to add Republic back in as a manufacturer. So I can reject the change, and then I can respond to her and say that I have completed that. And once we've given her the opportunity to go back and see that I've made the change and I have responded to her, she can go back in and she can reply, she can resolve the issue, or I can. The next comment we show is she's asking me about this manufacturer, and then I've responded to her and asked her a question. So basically what I'm showing you is that we have just typically we can go back and forth within the documents. Once the documents are completed and we turn into a project, so for example, if we're using a project that's done by an architect, once that's done, we can make it where the project is exported and the contractor can start making comments on the entire spec book or assigned portions that you can assign to subcontractors. Let's go on down. Let's see what else we have in here.
Holly, I'm curious, when you've been working with some of our clients in this kind of environment, how has it changed the way that you work in terms of, are there more meetings, less meetings? Is it easier just because everybody can access it at the same time?
So everyone can access and everyone can comment, and it makes everything go to one place. We don't have like emails lost all over the place. You know how sometimes somebody will email and you get 500 emails in a day. Your emails get lost. So I really like that you can comment right there back and forth to each other in the document. It really streamlines the process and makes everything quicker. So now I'm going to show you.
We had a question come in. They were wondering if there's a limit to how many characters you can put in that comment field. Have you ever encountered an issue where you haven't been able to leave the comment that you wanted?
No, because I have an engineer that I work with, and he has copied in like whole sections of documents that he wants entered in, like A, B, C, D. And sometimes if someone is a design professional, they are a little bit more wordy than someone who sits around and does specs and does words all day. So currently, no, we've had like the whole screen, the whole side of the screen filled up, and that makes it really nice because you can just click on it and open it, and it opens and shuts. So your whole screen, like if you have a PDF document and somebody comments, then your whole screen would be like crazy filled up with comments. This way you can like toggle the comments off and on and look at them. And I think that's like really, really great. So now we're going to look at a section. This is a user section that I imported. So what's most important when you have a mixture of using BSD sections and using sections that were imported, what's important is that we want all of our documents to be consistent and look like they've come from one place. So I've started editing editing up here, and you can see where I'm starting to put this document into the standard BSD format. Now your format, once you export out or you PDF and put it into a project manual digitally, you'll be able to change the font and the look of your documents, and they'll all look the same. Okay. So when I go down here to the related requirements, you can see that I have everything red, and that's my track changes where I added this. But the OAAO glazing, that's in green. And what that is this is a section that has been linked. So you know you're never going to use glazing surface films without something to put it on. So we have over on the left on the sequence manager, what we've done is we've taken this specification section, the glazing section, after we put it in here and we made it live. So we go over to the linking, and we can link this section to the glazing section. So when we have this section and when we turn on number 00, the sequence of 0008, when it's on, you can see it's green. It's going to turn on in our project specification list, in our master list. It's going to highlight and show you yellow and say, hey, something is affecting this spec section, and it's going to ask you, it's going to show you that you might want to use the glazing section. So all sections are smart. They're linked. You link them to each other, and it's very easy to link in SpecLink Cloud. You just drag and drop. So let's go down to the next.
Holly, I have a question for you on the linking, because I know that that's a very important aspect of SpecLink. We like to say that it helps reduce errors and omissions because the logic that spec writers put inside of all of their documents makes it an easy way to reference from one place to the next. Can you speak a little bit more about how you use the linking?
So we link in several different ways. We link from section to section, and we link within the document. So for example, here where I show the reference standard, this reference standard is linked in anywhere in the document. We don't click on this, and we'll show you this on our project specification. So when we click on that link there, it takes you right to the manufacturer's it takes you right to the website there. And it will show you what is the most current edition. Okay. Also, if I turn something on down in the body of the document that has the term ASTM E84 that references this, it's going to link itself. It's going to turn this on.
Thank you.
Adding the link. So the document, if I pick something in part 1, then in part 2, it's going to turn it on when it's linked. And this document hasn't been linked 100%. We're just showing you an example of a document that's been marked up and imported. And it's very, very easy to import the documents. You just have to make sure you don't have any section breaks or any crazy returns or anything like that. And it's very simple to import a document. So here we have another question out to the side, another comment. She says, why did I delete this? So I didn't delete it. What I did was I moved it to part 2. So again, it's very easy to comment back and forth. As spec writers, word-wise, we're very succinct with our questions. But again, like someone asked previously, we've had like really long questions. We've had people who've like typed in or copied in entire portions of other specification sections that have said add this. So you can see here's where I added the performance requirements over here. So let's go on down and see what else I have in here. So another comment I have here is they just had a presentation, and then I'm saying I'm not familiar with this. Can you send me info? So the reason I'm going over all of these comments is to emphasize how much easier and how much quicker and how much more streamlined it is to coordinate and talk back and forth online in the live document in the cloud. Works so much better than waiting on a response or waiting on emails or losing emails in your email section. Where else are we? I think that's pretty much all we have in this document. So now Laura's going to take us back to a project, and we're going to set up a project. She's going to show us how to set up a project from the master, right?
Yes, I'm trying to get control back. Bear with me.
So in this one, we're gonna actually go back to the process, and we're gonna set up a project that we've taken the owner's master specifications, and now we're turning them into, we've imported them over into a regular project.
So now if you look at my screen, you can see that we have one place is the central repository for the master's guide specifications. And now for the project, we can have project managers on the owner side be able to create a new project. I just go to active project, copy from Office Master, and then we just go straight to what it is. It's the most recent version that we have. So I have some owners that update them annually. Some do quarterly updates because we push updates of our content, manufacturers, and reference standards to them. So it just depends on how you want to do it. So all I have to do now is pick it up from here and then start to fill in project information, that are details about it, and give it a title, which we set one up here as our demo project. So again, you can see I've made it hidden so that the only people that can see it are the project participants. And then it's also a shared document or a shared file with, and I'll go over here and show you again, just as simple. So I can share projects or I can share masters, just depending on what the circumstances are. Again, I shared again with Holly and I shared it with Shelby. In this case, Shelby is going to be the project manager. She wants oversight. A lot of the owners I work with, they want to see that people are working on the specifications. They want to see the edits. They want the questions. So in this case, we've given her full edit rights here. And then we have Holly Jordan as also the project participant as the active architect on the project. And with that, let me go ahead and turn it back over to Shelby.
So now we're going to go through what it looks like when we start to edit from a master spec that has been pulled into a project, and we're going to start doing just like any other project, and we're just going to start editing our project. Now there are a lot of people, and our company was concerned with security of the documents being in the cloud. And like Laura showed you, it's locked down pretty good. And our security, our IT people were pretty satisfied with this, I believe. And so it's locked down where only people who you say can look at it. Only people who can edit it in that editing pane. You assign and you decide, or the owner decides, or the architectural firm decides who can view and who can edit. And to take that one step further, you can assign different sections or different groups of sections to people for review. So now we're going to look at our sheet waterproofing, and I started to build my spec just like I did before. It's very similar to editing a big Office Master. So I've turned on sections here. If it's green, it is turned on. If it's yellow, it's recommended that it's turned on. And then if it's red, that means you've turned on something that's caused the conflict. So you can see your green sections up there that are linked to other sections. And we can see there are red sections. So we click something, and something in the materials that are listed here with the manufacturers has turned this off, meaning if they don't have this particular project doesn't meet the requirements that we activated earlier in previous sections up here. Right, yeah, right there. Okay, let's see, what else? Where are we? So also, you can switch from active view to normal view, back and forth. So some people get a little nervous about everything that's grayed out. So everything that's grayed out, nothing ever goes away. You never delete anything. It's always there. So you can change your view so you can only see what's been turned on and what's been activated. I know a lot of people, for a good example of this is having your paragraph markers on. People don't like to have the paragraph markers on that show. It's kind of a similar process. So again, we've got comments out to the side. I saw a comment. Your ASTMs are activated. So here she said to please include WR Meadows and Sitco and Henry as acceptable manufacturers. So that we can assign whoever we want to like review and comment. Okay. So we've just gone down through and we edited this whole project here. This is a BSD section, so it's completely linked. So when we go into the other documents, into the whole project file, it's going to start activating. And off to the left here, you can see notes. We can add specifier notes, or we can add links. You can add pictures. So there's your specifier note. It says coordinate this paragraph with the warranty article. Okay, so it has just like a Word document. It has all of the notes, and you can add notes. You can add pictures. You can add links. And one of the things that I really love, absolutely, I think I may have said this before, 100%, my most favorite thing about SpecLink is our reference standards. The reference standards are always live. You can always click on them, and you can go to always have the most current one. You'll always know where the documents are, where you can get the documents, and where the most current document, what the most current document is. And I really like this a lot because I feel like the SpecLink really keeps these updated 100% all of the time.
Holly, I have a question for you on that, or at least maybe a comment, because I know that with SpecLink, you can just start to go choose products and just go straight to the product section. And it will automatically, because we have our spec writers here have got over, I don't know, 300,000 links inside of our content itself. But when you choose products, it will automatically be connected back to the reference standard. So you never have to worry about whether or not you've chosen the right one. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. That's correct.
Just another way to keep from making mistakes.
Also there is a lot of times when we start out a specific project, we have our owners want outline specs, and a lot of people don't like to do outline specs because you feel like you do an outline spec and then you have to throw it away. With this software, you have your full spec view and you have your outline view, which go ahead and click that. Good. And it will just show you the part 2 parts. So it will streamline and cut it down immensely. Whoa, that really streamlined, and I don't see anything. There we go. So you can toggle. It's three ways that you can toggle. You can have the full link. You can have the outline view, and you're not losing anything when someone asks you for an outline spec. You can go through and click the items you want for the outline, or you can have a short form view, a shortened spec. So we have a lot of people who want outline specs, and this is like a really, really great way to do it. Okay. So with that, I believe that's everything.
I'm just going to see if Sarah has any questions coming from the field.
Thanks, Laura. We had a few questions about the commenting features, specifically around comment notifications, and if you're able to cut and paste from the comment sections.
I have tried it. I like to just type really quickly, so I just mostly type it, but I have done that before, yes, because I do have some people who like type in a whole bunch of stuff. So
yeah, yes, I can attest to that as well. The copy and paste feature does work within SpecLink. We could probably even demo that.
As far as I'll speak to the notification, that is on the product roadmap. So that is something that we are adding to it, so that way you'll be notified if somebody has alerted you or has made a comment that you need to respond to.
Another question that we had, who has the ability to comment?
Whoever
You can give the ability to comment to anybody that you like. They do not have to have a license to do that.
So you decide, you can assign them to comment on every section, you can assign them to comment on one division, or you can assign them to comment on one section, one group of sections. So the administrator, the project manager, or the spec writer, that's the person who like opens up, and you can assign people.
Wonderful, thank you.
Oh, I'm going to ask another question of Holly and Shelby. I often describe the linking as, because it's a SQL database, so we've worked together with clients before, so I think you'll know what I'm talking about. I've looked at master documents that were in Word documents that had color-coded legends and keys that were all that logic of what, you know, if a project's over 50,000, then these conditions apply. If it's a school, these conditions apply. I mean, there was all kinds of things that I saw that architects and design professionals would have to mine through in order to be able to use guide specifications from an owner. How would you describe how we can translate those color coding and legends back over into SpecLink with the actual intelligent linking in the documents in the background?
So there are several different ways to link. You can link from section to section. You can link within the section. And within the section, if you click on one thing, like self-adhered modified bituminous sheet membrane, then it turns it on in part 2. We do ours backwards. Some people do it the right way and click on the self-adhere, and it turns it on in part 1. You're supposed to technically start altering in part 2. Or it has a feature linking wise. If you choose this, then it turns off this, and that's why down in the body of this document there are items that are red. So you can make it link in there and say if this is a school project, or if this is a hospital project, you can have it turn off and on. So you can have that kind of interaction linking wise. Which
I often refer to it as clash detection for language, where Revit does clash detection for 3-dimensional systems. And then
yes.
We want to try to make sure that the two match.
Yes.
All right. Sarah, do we have any more questions?
The other questions that we have coming in, I think will be best saved for the end. They're a bit more involved, and would love to get a bit further into the demo.
So we're pretty much done with the demo. I didn't want to get too deep into the woods. There's so much more. Every time I use it, I learn something else, and I get, happier and happier using it. It's just like anything else. The more you use it, the more you learn, and the better you are that you get at it.
So I guess I can show a couple of extra things from the owner's perspective, and also for project managers, both architectural and owners. We can dive into this project. These are more of what we would do. If you guys wanted to do a free trial, we can certainly set this up and take you into a little bit more of the weeds. We wanted to keep this one mostly around what we do with updating guide standards and guide specifications together in collaboration. But even in projects, when we're talking about the project management side of it, just setting up a project in general, one of the things that we can do is we've got a couple of different items. Holly mentioned it with the reference standards. So we keep a central repository of those reference standards here. These are the national ones that we update regularly. By dragging and dropping it, which you saw Shelby do, it actually now takes what was a static one, which she had in her documents, and it's now a live link. So every time we update this reference standard, it'll get alerts over to the project manager or to the master. The other one, though, with the owners, and especially for architectural firms that are trying to keep up and help them, or at least with Perkins and Will, how we do it there, is to be able to create another central repository for local code. So you don't have to go find it everywhere in the document. These are a find, seek, and replace option here. So even in the case of this reference standard, I think Holly mentioned this, this might be in 25 places inside of this master guide spec. When we update it, it is a find, seek, and replace that you guys can actually accept that change and say, yes, I want to take the most recent version. It won't automatically update inside the content until you have an active acceptance of it. But you can also create your own. So where you update local code here, you drag and drop it the same way, and then you actually have a place where you can have a central repository of local code. The other one that we have is global terms. This gets used infinitely by not only Perkins and Will and her team when they're actually putting projects together and updating standards, but also for any project managers on the owner side. So in this case, these are common terms that get used everywhere. You can create your own. So in this case, if I want to change the owner's actual name, all I have to do is come in here. And I can tell you, as somebody who's worked with owners for the last 30 years and for the last 3 years that I've been here at BSD, working with them and asking them what are their biggest challenges, the one thing that really irks them is getting the name of somebody else on their guide specs or on their project specifications, and they know that the architect has just copied and pasted and they didn't bother to put the right name on it. So that should never happen in SpecLink. So we've got ABC Corporation. So it's a real simple feature where you just take it, drag it and drop it. You can actually, and now everywhere that I've got owner's actual name, I can do this in headers and footers. I don't have to go section by section and go make certain that everything is right. You can create headers and footers where you can put images and logos. You can put all that in there. But even when you're setting up a project and you want to change your bid dates, things of that nature, all of that is in here as an easy way just for the maintenance of those guide standards and guide specs. Holly, is there anything else that you guys use when you're updating standards and guide specifications?
I don't, not so far. You know, I think we pretty much covered
Yeah.
pretty much the thing we use. I mean, we do some importing. That's really important to make sure that everyone understands. It's pretty easy to import a section and link it. And we do a lot of that for our owners, because especially for our engineers, they want their own documents, their own MEP things that they've been working on forever. So they're very particular about that.
Sounds good. Okay, Sarah, we'll let you finish up with questions.
Wonderful. We have a lot of questions coming in. Let me scroll up to the beginning here to make sure that we get to everyone. I know a lot of questions came in regarding licensing and who can make comments, who can make edits. And I'll certainly be sending an email tomorrow with the link to the webinar recording, as well as contact information for Laura. Laura, I know you'd be happy to speak one-on-one regarding licensing, pricing, and how all of that works.
Well, I can speak topically for the moment because some of it depends on what kind of content they want, but for the most part, it is the only person that needs to have a license is whoever is going to edit. Everybody else can be invited in as a collaborator, and they can view and comment, or view only, just depends. But you can do it either way. And then I can happy to share this with anybody who wants it, where you can start to calculate and figure out just how much time and money are you already spending on your processes, and I can assure you it's not going to come up to the cost of the software. So we tried to make it to where it was, we want people to use it, we want to change the way people are working. That's why we labeled this disruptive technology. Right now, people are spending a great deal of time trying to hunt down documents and emails and shared drives, and it's really at the owner's peril.
Thanks, Laura. We also had a couple questions that came through about the calculator that you showed us, that Excel spreadsheet. Is that something that we could take another look at? I know a lot of people were asking if they can actually have access to it and see if they can.
I believe we're going to start putting it on our website, but yes, I can make it available.
Wonderful. And if anyone, of course, is interested, please feel free to reply to that email that you'll be receiving tomorrow, and we'll be happy to share that information with you. A few comments just came through talking about how much they love the comment notifications and global terms and how beneficial that was for them. So that's always great to see. Can you speak a little bit to the import tool and having custom masters?
Certainly, the next webinar that we're going to do, webinar 3, is actually all about that subject. So we will be going into a lot more detail about that, and also how you can nest masters. So I don't want to speak a whole lot about that on this one because I want to save that for that webinar. But I can tell you we do have a specialist in-house that we hired. He was the former CTO of Arcom, who has built an import tool. So he's pretty much genius in figuring out what we need to do to format documents to make certain that they can come in. Haven't run into a client that we can't help yet. Some of it that he's put together allows some automatic, what I call SpecLinkification. So we have what we call choice fields. So if you noticed down here, I selected on SDI standards. So this is actually part of a BSD document where we have 2 choices. And to speak to what Holly was talking about earlier about the linking, if I choose NAMM, what it will automatically do is everything that is related to SDI will get flagged red in the system because I can't have conflicting standards here. So this is one place where we can actually take in documents from somebody else and we can automatically create choice fields. So over here onto the side, we have a place where you can do multiple choice or check boxes. It's real simple, but the tool that we built actually allows us to read the documents that you've got and make automatic choice fields to minimize how much effort you have to do on your end, which isn't too bad. You can link your documents and you can bring in your reference standards. But in this case, we can do some automatic.
So at first, when you first start using software, you're very nervous about importing documents, and they can help you, or they can import any documents. The software people can import any documents, but I will tell you that it's very, very simple. There are just a few things that you have to remember: is take out any extraneous, extra blank lines in your document, and make sure there are no section breaks in your documents. And importing a document is easy and instantaneous. I do it a lot. So it's very easy to do. It's just a matter of biting the bullet and doing it yourself one time to see how easy it is.
I just imported a document while we were sitting here. And again, it tells it's a user added. So that's what Holly had mentioned earlier. It tells me who the author is. And then I've already got it tagged to come on in. And then from here, I can start to make references. I can start to change things. So in this case, I've got a choice. And since I didn't use our import tool, what I can do here is create the choice field to make it easier to where it's a little bit more dynamic, and it's a SpecLinkified document. And in this case, we'll do checkboxes, and it's an and statement. What was it? Passengers, and I can't remember. I can't remember the other one. I'll just put stairs. I don't.
Right.
Or dogs and cats. I don't know. Right. So now you can see here we've got the preview down here in the bottom, and now all I have to do is just drag and drop it up into the document where I want it, and now I've got a choice, and because I've made it an inclusive statement, I can now actually do both, or I can turn it on and off. But I've now taken what was a static document, brought it in, and now started to make it a little bit more dynamic. In the case of I think we're almost getting close out of time, so I'll stop because we can save this for if people want to see a demo. We'll be happy to show them how to do it. But it is very easy to import documents. Sarah, did you have anything else? Any more questions?
Yes, we had a few people chime in with what our BSD support team is like and how they can best get their teams trained on the system and what that onboarding process looks like.
Oh, that's an easy one. I can answer that one. I call and I get an immediate response. Okay. Anytime I have a question, we get an immediate response. I have not had any problems. Most of the time they answer the phone, but when I leave a message, I get more than one phone call. I feel like this company has been very proactive, very customer service oriented, and I'm kind of loud and pushy, I guess, and I have high expectations. If I'm calling you, that means I've already tried to figure it out, and then and I'm already in a bind and I need help. And I have never not gotten immediate help from multiple people at this company. I've been so thrilled with the service that we've received and the support. When we first started out on our very first project on this, we were kind of nervous. You know, this is very different going from a word-based document system to a database-driven system, and I was a little nervous. And we did have someone come up and sit with us and basically hold our hand through the whole process on working on our first project. We've had extensive training. They offer training. Right now it's going to be offsite, but they've come to our office. You can go to their office. You can do online. They have some content and training videos online, and they are absolutely marvelous. So there are a lot of different ways that you can get answers to your questions. A lot of times I'm really bad and I just pick up the phone and call because I can. So does that answer?
Well, I don't have anything to add, so yes.
That was great. Thank you, Holly.